Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to England once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good number of times before. I've had some very nice beers from these guys over the years, but the one we're trying today is a style that I've never had from them before, so fingers crossed this one carries on in the same vein as the previous beers we've had. So for this review we will head down to Cornwall in the southwest of England, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Verdant Brewing Company. This one is called the NZ Pilsner, or New Zealand Pilsner. I'm not sure exactly how Verdant intended it to be called, but this one comes in at 4.9% ABV. I guess you know what style it is from the name, but this one is hopped with Nelson Sauvin, which is a beautiful hop actually. Lovely kind of white, green, grapey sort of flavours, and it comes in with a kind of cracking 16% alpha acid normally, so it's a bit of a beast, I have to say, and not a lot of people realise that about Nelson Sauvin, because it usually gives you a very kind of soft and oily flavour actually, but it's a cracker when it comes to alpha acid, you know, between 14 and 16% normally, so bit of a monster, but yeah, very, very curious to see how this one turns out. As I've told you, I've been getting really into my lager beers again over the last kind of year, 18 months, and this is one that just kind of caught my eye when I was doing an order recently. I got this one from All Good Beer, who are based in Hackney in London, when I was making a very small order actually. So yeah, nice to feature this one on the channel. Nice to try my first lager beer from Verdant Brewing Company as well. These guys of course really made their name when it comes to the New England hazy type IPAs. So yeah, fingers crossed this turns out to be a good beer. Nice to return to Verdant Brewing once again, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Verdant Brewing Company before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the English beers that I've reviewed for you, and that's being added to quite regularly at the moment because I am at home in the motherland of Scotland, and the English beers are very easily accessible. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Verdant Brewing then, on to my brewery notes. So Verdant Brewing are originally from Falmouth in Cornwall, but they were founded back in 2014 by Adam Robertson and James Heffron, and they were joined in the very early stages as well by Rich White. So Adam was a designer by trade, and then James had been a home brewer for a number of years, while Rich was actually an electrician who helped them actually build the brewery and then joined early on as a partner. So they ordered their brewing equipment in 2014 and started brewing their beers the following year. Initially they actually struggled to get their beers recognised in Cornwall because of the traditional beer culture there, but they were proven to be a big hit in other parts of the country. So yeah, that's one thing I do need to explore at some stage, is some of these kind of traditional Cornish ales actually. So give me some recommendations of those if you're watching from down in Cornwall. I would love to get some of those on the channel at some stage, as I said. But yeah, they became a big hit across the rest of England, and then gradually their beers have become more recognised in Cornwall as well. But they were originally based in the Tregonigi Industrial Estate in the west of Falmouth, and this brewery was upgraded to a 16 hectolitre system with a weekly brewing capacity of around 8,000 litres. Later they opened up their restaurant and bar on Quay Street in 2018 after they did a crowdfunding campaign, and they very recently opened up a new brewery in Penryn, which is fitted with a 35 hectolitre system, so 3,500 litres per brew, which is pretty impressive, and that has helped them distribute their beers a lot more widely across England and up here into Scotland as well. But as of January 2021, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 60 different kinds of beer, and like I said, they are one of the most respected craft breweries in England these days. They do some really cracking stuff actually. So yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Verdant Brewing Company for the moment. I've had some great beers from these guys over the years, so I would recommend that you try some of these if you get the chance. So yeah, that's all we can say. So if you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website in the video description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's see how we get on with this one. So yeah, this I think I do like the artwork on this, I have to say. It's quite kind of snazzy almost. So yeah, the artwork on this does look pretty damn nice actually. It's pretty cool. But yeah, 440ml can, this one. As I said, I got this one from All Good Beer in Hackney in London when I ordered a small 6-pack. And yeah, it just caught my eye because I thought, well, you know, I needed to get 6 beers, and this one was one of the ones that I liked. You know, I like New Zealand hops. You guys will know that if you've watched the channel for any length of time. So I thought a Pilsner from Verdant. It's not often you see that, so I just went for it. I think this beer cost me like £3 or something, maybe £3.50. But yeah, definitely worth it to have a look at my first lager beer from Verdant Brewing Company. So yeah, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. A 4.9% Pilsner beer hopped with New Zealand Nelson Sauvin. So yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting then. Very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. One thing I did notice that was quite... oh, just... that'll be okay. One thing I did notice about this beer on the back is that it says it has wheat in it, and that, from what I understand, is quite unusual for a Pilsner as well. Not often that you get a Pilsner with wheat in it, but it should give the beer just a little bit more kind of breadiness and things. So I guess this one wouldn't pass the German Reinheitsgebot standards actually if it's got wheat in it. Although, yeah, I think most of the German ones do have just kind of straight up Pilsner malt in them, which is quite interesting. But these beers, Pilsner beers, are very technically demanding, from what I understand, to brew, because you know it's cold fermentation. The difference between a lager and ale, of course, is the temperature of fermentation. Bottom fermenting yeasts, they ferment at colder temperatures, you know, around sort of 10 degrees, whereas the ale yeast tend to ferment around, you know, 15, 16, 17 sort of degrees. But yeah, it looks... it does, I have to say, look very, very nice, and it's kind of as you would expect. So with this beer, you can see that it poured a lovely kind of pale golden straw colour. You can see that when the head was there, it was about a finger of a frothy, I would say a slightly cream coloured head there, but almost perfect white. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass. There are a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, and you can see there are tiny little just particles floating around in this one. But you know, it does have a natural level of haze. You can see the beer is actually fairly clear, but you've got a few little kind of particles just floating around in this one. But yeah, it certainly looks the part of a nice Pilsner beer, this one, so nothing overly surprising about the appearance, I have to say. So let's take a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. I'm very, very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. Yeah, it does smell pretty authentic, to be honest. And that's one of the things we always expect with these, or the way I like to rate the Pilsner beers. I want them to be authentic, like the German and Czech. Varieties. The German ones, of course, are a little bit more kind of crisp and dry, whereas the Czech ones tend to be a little bit more kind of yeasty and bready. But yeah, the aroma of this beer, I think, is absolutely lovely. You can definitely get more of that kind of Nelson Sauvin element out of it, obviously, but yeah, you can smell the kind of New World hop, if that makes sense, in this beer. But yeah, I really like how this one goes together in a sense. It's you've got a lovely kind of soft white bready character to it underneath. So yeah, lovely kind of soft white bready character to it. You've got a little bit, you do get a wee bit of that kind of Pilsner crispness to it as well. You do get a little bit of that Pilsner malty crispness in there. There's a wee bit of a kind of McVitie's digestive sort of biscuit thing coming off it as well. But other than that, I really don't think there's too much to report on this beer in terms of the malty side of things. Yeah, soft white bready character, and that'll be from the wheat as well. You do get a wee touch of the bitiness from the wheat if you take the aroma in a little bit more deeply, to be honest. Yeah, at the back of the nose you'll get just a little bit of that wheaty, bitey, spicy sort of thing. But then yeah, soft white bready notes, like I said, and also some yeah, you know, also a little bit of just a little bit of that kind of Pilsner malt crispness, some nice McVitie's digestive sort of qualities to the beer as well, which is great. So yeah, I really like how this one goes together for sure. But the aroma of this beer on the malty side of things is just pretty bang on. It does come across as pretty authentic, but I think the bready notes are just a little bit thicker. And obviously, if you've got wheat in there, that is going to be that's going to be a result. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, it is kind of what you would expect if you know Nelson Sauvin. Now, with the beer though, I don't think it's only Nelson Sauvin that's in this. I think there is perhaps another German hop in this, because it does have a wee bit of that typical noble character to it. Maybe a little bit of Hallertau Blanc, which would complement the Nelson Sauvin quite nicely. It could be a little bit of that, but that's one of the higher alpha acid German hops. It's about 11%, and that's got a kind of gooseberry type flavour from what I remember. So yeah, it could just be a little bit of, you know, Hallertau or Tettnang or something that's in here, but definitely you get a little bit of that kind of soft, noble earthiness. You get a wee touch of herbal quality, a nice, quite bright floral aromaticity, which is the main thing that's telling me there might be a German hop in this one. It's not spicy, otherwise I would say that there would be a little bit of Czech Žatec in this one, but you've also got a nice little bit of bright grassiness in there. There's a good little bit of citrusy zest, but I suspect the floral notes and the grassy notes in the beer will be being skewed a little bit by the presence of the Nelson Sauvin. But yeah, the aroma of this beer is nice in that sense. You get a wee bit of that kind of typical peary, appley sort of ester from what I suspect is the you know, a German hop underneath, but you've got a wee bit of zestiness in there, but you do get a lot of that big oily white green grapey note from the Nelson Sauvin. That's its trademark, is that big white green grapey sort of thing. It almost comes across as a little bit gooseberry like in a lot of ways, but for me, definitely underneath that big sort of oily Nelson Sauvin component, there are a few more noble qualities to the beer, like, you know, like a sort of lemony peary sort of thing. There is a little bit of that going on, but the aroma of the beer is kind of what you would expect from this style. It doesn't do anything, you know, crazy or surprising, but when it comes to a Pilsner beer like this, you want it to be authentic. That's exactly what you're looking for with this, and it certainly does that so far. So positive vibes about this beer so far. So as I always say, take a little bit of time to just enjoy the aroma of it before you get stuck in, but we are going to have a taste of this beer now and just see how we get on. So yeah, let's go for it. Yeah, this one, the New Zealand Pilsner, New NZ Pilsner, however they want it to be called, from Verdant Brewing Company, now based in Penryn, but down in Falmouth, or were originally in Falmouth in Cornwall in the southwest of England. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Yeah, that's pretty damn nice, I have to say. Thumbs up to Verdant for this one. I like what's happening in this. Yeah, it's lovely. It's nicely done. That I would say this strikes me as one of the more kind of oily Pilsners that I've had in recent times, but it works. It really does work, and I think if you're going to use a New World hop, to be honest, you would need a little bit more of a kind of oily character in the beer, and that's exactly what you get with this one. Absolutely. So yeah, the flavour profile of this is really pretty nice. It's kind of, it has that sort of authentic malt base, if you like, but it just feels a little bit sort of smoother, if that makes sense. It doesn't quite have the kind of thickness, if you like, of the kind of thickness and sort of yeastiness, if you like, of the kind of Czech lagers, and it doesn't quite have the crispness of the kind of German Pilsners either. But yeah, I mean, it's got a lovely smoothness to it in the base here. Remember though that the Pilsner style of beer originated in the city of Pilsen, which is now the Czech Republic. Originally, when the beer was invented, it was the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The brewer that invented the beer, I believe, was from Bavaria. Wasn't a very nice man. He got kicked out of the city of Pilsen, I think 2 years after he arrived and had developed this beer. So yeah, it wasn't a very good ending for him, but of course the original Pilsner beer is the Pilsner Urquell, or Plzeňský Prazdroj, as the Czechs call it, and I still love that beer. You know, that would be a go-to for me, absolutely. And this, you know, trying Pilsners like this and seeing how the style can evolve, I find really interesting. But this is definitely, it's a little bit smoother than the than the German ones, if that makes sense. It's got a wee bit of the crispness in there, but it doesn't quite have the kind of sort of thickness, if you like, that sort of thicker and smoother malt base that you'll get, the yeasty kind of qualities from the Czech ones. But it's a lovely, lovely Pilsner beer, this one, and it definitely has my approval, absolutely. So, yeah, beautifully, beautifully done, I have to say. So, yeah, in terms of, let's try and break down the flavour profile of this one then, and just discuss it properly. So straight away with this beer, you can feel that nice kind of smooth sort of white bready quality just blanketing the middle of your tongue. As you move further back on the palate, this we're talking about middle third of your palate now, you can just feel that smooth kind of white breadiness in there. I think the wheat is having a bit of influence on this one because the beer is not madly dry, but you've got a nice kind of smooth malty base to it. But yeah, you've got a little bit of a kind of Pilsner malty dryness on that border region between middle third and back third of your palate. As you go towards the kind of back third of your tongue, there's a nice little bit of a kind of wheaty, white bready smoothness coming out of the beer, which I really like. It's just really, really nicely done in that sense, I have to say. It's that you can feel it's got a little bit of a kind of thicker quality on that back third of your palate, and it just adds a wee bit more depth to the beer. So yeah, I like that for sure. That maybe adding the wheat is something that you could play with a little bit in Pilsner beers if you were experimenting. But yeah, it's got everything you would want from this style of beer. It's very drinkable. It's got a little bit of the crispness and things, and like I say, it's got a little bit of smoothness. So it's almost a little bit like a kind of Czech German hybrid, but sort of Czech German hybrid, but just a little bit kind of more smooth, if that makes sense. But yeah, back third of your palate, lovely kind of smooth, white bready base there from the wheat. You can get a little bit of the kind of wheaty bitiness at the very back of your palate, but then as you move further forward, you can feel the beer is very, very smooth. In that border region, you've definitely got a little bit of a sort of just crispness, that dryness from the Pilsner malt, and then as you move further forward into that middle third of your palate, you can feel the thickness just drops away a little bit, and then the beer is just a little bit more smooth, but a little bit slick actually. In the very centre of your palate, you do get a little bit of a kind of sweet. There's a tiny little bit of a kind of sweet caramelly note, but very quickly as you move out from the centre of your palate, it becomes distinctly more kind of biscuity, like McVitie's digestive biscuit sort of things coming out of this beer. So yeah, I really like how that one comes together. In fairness, it's the malt base of this beer, which is one of the hard things to get right in a Pilsner beer, is done very, very well. But you know, pardon me, getting a bit of gas off this beer, but knowing Verdant, that is, you know, it's not much of a surprise, to be quite honest with you. So yeah, I like what's going on in this one. So I think that covers the malty side of this beer fairly well, to be honest with you. The malty side of these beers is usually straight shooting. It's just all about how it's kind of crafted together. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, there's a nice little bit of earthiness there, but not a lot. As you move further forward, you get a little touch of a herbal quality. Then as you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, the beer is distinctly more kind of floral and aromatic. Remember, as I said earlier, the Nelson Sauvignon is a big 14 to 16% beast in terms of its alpha acid, and if you use it as an early addition hop, you'll get a lot of bitterness out of the beer. I mean, remember, when it comes to the level of bitterness that you get in beers, it's all about how many hops or how much hops you put in the early part of the wort boil. So the earlier you add the hops, the more the more bitterness you get out of them. But if you add the hops later and later into the boil, you get a trade-off between bitterness in favour of like flavour and aroma actually. So yeah, that's what you're gonna get out of this beer for sure. But yeah, you definitely get a nice, you can feel some of the spicy notes. You can feel a little bit of the kind of spicy character from the Nelson Sauvignon, particularly on that front corner, in the front corners of your palate. But as you go round the very front curve of the tongue there, it's got a little bit of a lighter kind of grassy note there. But the kind of grassier notes have a little bit of zest to them as well, which is quite interesting. So I do like that about this beer as well, to be honest with you. The green component is done very, very nicely. But on the fruity side of things, as I always say, on that front third of your palate, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where those juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. If you go towards the back of that front third of your tongue, there is a little bit of a kind of graininess there on that border region, but then you've got a wee bit of a slightly stronger lemony type citrus there at the back, and then as you move further forward it just mellows out a little bit. You get a wee bit of a kind of appley, peary sort of thing in there. Then as you reach the kind of front half of that front third of your tongue, you get a little bit of the more kind of oily, kind of white, green, grapey sort of thing. But there is a little bit of an almost, there's a very, very slight sort of lemon limey kind of quality to this beer as well, and that sits on the very tip of the tongue. It just gives you a little bit of the kind of zesty quality that you expect. So I do suspect that there is another hop in here along with the Nelson Sauvin, because if you used Nelson Sauvin as if you used Nelson Sauvin as the only hop in this, you would have to add very, very little in the beginning to get the level of bitterness that you've got in these beers. You know, Pilsners are usually 20 to 25 IBUs. Pilsner Urquell is 30, so it's a little bit more bitter. The Italians have the Italian Pilsner as well, which is more hoppy. So yeah, I don't think I think that they might have used one of the noble hops or something in here as well as the Nelson Sauvin, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong, in fairness. There's one or two elements that are telling me that there is, especially a little bit, the soft earthiness and the way that some of the floral characters come out are telling me that there is a noble hop in here, whereas the other thing that I'm remembering here is that it's all about when during the boil that you add these hops. So maybe they've just added the Nelson Sauvin a little bit later on. I'm not quite sure about that. But regardless, the hoppy side of the beer is done very, very well. But yeah, fruity side of the beer, a little bit of a kind of lemony citrus in there as you move further forward. Mellows out, a little bit of pear, a little bit of apple. Then on the front half of the tongue, you've got that more oily white, green, grapey thing that you've come to expect of Nelson Sauvin, and then just a little bit of a slightly lemony, zesty quality on the very edge of the tongue. But I mean, overall, it's a very nicely done beer, this one. It's executed very, very well, and I do like the way the Nelson Sauvin comes out, and I like the influence of the wheat in this as well. So that's an interesting thing that I should think about with Pilsners going forward. But thumbs up to Verdant for this one. Another solid beer, and I wouldn't expect any less from them at this stage, in fairness. But yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, what would we say about this beer? I would say that this one is probably, it's kind of top end of light bodied, bottom end of mid bodied. It's got a lovely kind of smooth mouthfeel to it. I find this to be one of the more kind of oily Pilsners that I've come across, in fairness, and I think that suits the kind of New World hop actually. I'd love to see an Enigma Pilsner. I think that could be really interesting. You get Citra Pilsners as well. It'd be cool to do Galaxy Pilsners and stuff. I would love to see breweries doing these beers and just playing around with the New World hops. I think I've had like a Mandarina Bavaria Pilsner before as well, come to think of it, or a Hallertau Blanc Pilsner. But yeah, they're very. I'm glad to see that these styles of beer are just getting a little bit more attention. So I hope that a number of breweries try these different New World hops in the beers. Actually, I'd love to get down to New Zealand and just stay there for a little bit and try some of the lager beers that are brewed down there, because I'm sure in New Zealand they've got a plethora of different hops down there that they can play with. So yeah, I would love to try some more of the kind of New Zealand brewed lager beers actually. So yeah, this one has been a very nice treat, to be honest with you. It's one of the more oily Pilsners, like I've said. In terms of hoppy bitterness, it's got to be, this one isn't too high. This is probably about 20 IBUs at most, in fairness. Yeah, I think about 20 IBUs is probably fair for this one. But yeah, malty side of the beer, nice and smooth, a little bit of sweetness to it as well. Then you've got a nice kind of oily, fruity character, but also just a little bit of zestiness, I think, as well. So yeah, I really like how this one goes together in a lot of ways. It gets a big thumbs up from me, and I do hope that I can try a few more Pilsner beers with these New World hops in them. I've had one or two with Nelson Sauvin so far, so it'd be quite cool to try some with maybe like Motueka or you know, some of the other Kiwi hops. You know, Enigma from Australia would be a good candidate as well. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one then. Really, really quirky beer this, and I very much enjoyed it. Very nicely executed Pilsner beer. So yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Verdant Brewing Company. We will return to these guys at some point in the fairly near future, I'm sure. But in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoy this one. It's been nice to return to Verdant once again, especially for a different style, and I hope that we can review more from these guys very, very soon. I do have one more beer to review from them quite soon, actually, and there's maybe a second going to come in as well. So yeah, let's leave it there. Thanks again for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the next review. This one is the New Zealand Pilsner, NZ Pilsner, however they want to call it, from Verdant Brewing Company, now in Penryn, but originally from Falmouth, down in Cornwall in the southwest of England. Slàinte, skull, cheers, and catch you guys very soon.